Good morning and welcome to the Transportation Telecommunications Committee. My name is Suzanne Geist. I represent District 25, which is the southeast corner of Lincoln and Lancaster County. We will start off having members of the committee and staff do self-introductions, starting to my right with Senator Frederickson.
Good morning, I'm John Frederickson. I represent District 20, which is in central West Omaha.
Mike Moser, I represent District 22, Platte, and most of Stanton counties.
Tom Brandt, District 32, Fillmore Thayer, Jefferson, Saline, and southwestern Lancaster counties.
Bruce Bostelman, District 23, Saunders, Butler, Colfax counties.
Michaela Kavanaugh, District 6, West Central Omaha, Douglas County.
Barry DeKay, District 40, represent Holt, Knox, Cedar, Antelope, most of Pierce, and a lot of Dixon County.
Also assisting is our page, Caitlin from UNL, who is a history major. Thank you, Caitlin. This morning we'll be hearing a confirmation hearing and one bill, and we'll take them in the order that's listed outside the room. On the table near the entrance of the room, you'll find blue testifier sheets. If you're planning to testify, please fill one out and hand it to the page when you come up. This will help us keep an accurate record of the hearing. If you do not wish to testify but would like to record your presence at the hearing, please fill out the gold sheet on the table near the entrance. I would also like to note the legislature's policy that all letters for the record must be received by the committee by noon the day prior to the hearing. Any handouts submitted by testifiers will also be included as part of the record as exhibits. We would ask if you have any handouts, you please bring 10 copies and give them to the page. If you need additional copies, the page will be sure to provide them for you. Understand that senators may come and go during our hearing. This is common and required as they may be presenting bills in other committees. This is how our hearing will run. Testimony for each bill will begin with the introducer's opening statement. After opening statements, we will hear from any supporters of the bill and then from those in opposition, followed by those speaking in the neutral capacity. The introducer of the bill will be given an opportunity to make closing statements if they wish to do so. We ask that you begin your testimony by first giving us your name and spelling it for the record. We will be using a 5-minute light system today. When you begin your testimony, the light on the table will turn green. The yellow light is your 1-minute warning, and the red light comes on. We ask you to wrap up your final thoughts. I would like to remind everyone, including senators, to turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate. And with that, we will begin with the confirmation hearing, the appointment of Rhonda Lahm to Director of Department of Motor Vehicles. Welcome, Director Lahm.
Good morning, Chairwoman Geist and members of the Transportation and Telecommunications Committee. My name is Rhonda Lahm, RHONDA LAHM, and I've been appointed by Governor Pillen to continue serving as the Director of the Department of Motor Vehicles. I grew up on a farm in southwest Nebraska, attended a one-room country school, and graduated from high school in Maywood, Nebraska. I attended what at the time was Kearney State College for 1 year, and then transferred to Nebraska Wesleyan University, where I received my Bachelor of Science degree. I have since received my master's degree in management and leadership from Dungan University. This is my 43rd year in state government with service in 3 different agencies: the Department of Corrections, the Nebraska State Patrol, and the Department of Motor Vehicles. Over 20 of the 43 years has been in management positions. I spent over 25 of those years as an officer with the Nebraska State Patrol, attaining the rank of major prior to my retirement in 2008. As the Administrative Services Major, my responsibilities included oversight of the information technology, finance, procurement, grants, research and planning, communications network, radio engineering, supply, and training academy divisions, as well as being one of 5 sworn personnel comprising the agency's command staff. Over my career, I've received specialized training in supervision and management, and I'm a graduate of the Northwestern School of Police Staff and Command, where I received the Franklin M. Kreml Leadership Award. I'm a certified mediator through the Nebraska Office of Dispute Resolution. I've also been an active volunteer with my church, the schools my children attended, and Boy Scouts over the years. In February of 2013, I assumed the position as Director of the Department of Motor Vehicles and have served in that capacity since then. I'm responsible for all aspects of the agency's operation and ensuring compliance with statutory requirements. In the last several years, the DMV team has made significant strides forward in providing better and more efficient service to our customers. I'd like to highlight some of those activities. The agency has completely revised the business model for providing driver license services in the Omaha metro area with the deployment of service centers. This change has significantly improved customer service by reducing wait times and allowing for appointments for all types of service. This new model for driver licensing services is currently in the process of being deployed in Lancaster County. In 2019, we deployed the complete modernization of the vehicle title and registration system. This major project, which was completed on time and $1 million under budget, has provided efficiencies for service, increased our ability to audit and account for the over $850 million collected and distributed each year through this system, and allowed for expansion of online services. The department has worked closely with the Nebraska Trucking Association to move forward with the modernization of the motor carrier services registration system. At the current time, the responses to the request for proposal have been received and the evaluation process is being completed. We anticipate the project to begin later this spring and be completed by the end of 2024. In 2021, a fund was established to begin setting aside monies for the modernization of the driver's licensing system. That project timeline has been developed, and we anticipate the project will be completed well ahead of the statutory mandate. When these two projects are completed, all of the large operational systems in the DMV will be on modern platforms. Over the last 10 years, the DMV has deployed numerous online services to better serve our customers. I'm very fortunate to have exceptional employees who work hard for the residents of Nebraska. They're progressive and innovative thinkers who step up to the plate and find creative solutions to challenges. I look forward to continuing to work with them to provide customer-focused services for the people of Nebraska. Thank you very much for your time today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your testimony. Does the committee have any questions for the director? Yes, Senator Frederickson.
Of course. Thank you, Chair Geist. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for your work. I certainly have, I've personally benefited from online appointments in Omaha, so that is, I think, a much needed improvement there. One question I did have about in Douglas County with the DMV, specifically as it relates to written tests and driving tests. My understanding is that's only available at the 178th and Dodge location. Is that correct?
So that is correct in terms of Douglas County and then also the Metro South location. So when we looked, before we started that project, we actually worked with the University of Nebraska at Omaha, and they did a population study for us. And we asked them to identify where should we strategically locate two service centers at the time, large service centers, to best serve the customers then and also looking to the future. So they identified two different options, kind of like a north-south stacked on top of each other, one in Sarpy, one in Douglas, and then also like a northwest-southeast, kind of like where we went. And the reason that we chose the one we did is we were seeing huge expansions in the eastern, southeastern part, and also in northwest. And then we felt like that still left a void, so we then added the North Service Center that does express stations, sort of like what we used to have here in Lincoln. So those sites were selected in conjunction with the expert at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, doing a population study.
Okay. And then the site center on the north site center you added, are residents able to take tests at that site?
So
or they would have to go to the 170?
There's no testing there.
Okay.
There's like renewals, initial applications for identification cards, really any service that's not test with CDL. And even prior to that, we only had CDL testing at one location of the 5 that we had in the smaller offices in Omaha. And part of what drove that whole thing was the population was increasing in the Omaha metro, and we looked at the whole metro area. We didn't really divide counties. We just looked at the whole metro area because that's how we staff and how we view that service area. And when we looked at it, the offices that we had, there was no more room to physically expand. In other words, to make additional workstations. And we were growing at 6% a year in that area, customers we were seeing in the doors. So we had to look at a different business model, and I think it's proven to be the right business model. It's really efficient, but that's how we identified where we did in conjunction with the University of Nebraska.
Sure. I think my only concern with that would be just accessibility purposes for folks who might not live in that area, especially if they were going to be taking a driver's exam. Public transportation could be an issue to get out there, but I appreciate your feedback on that. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Chairwoman Geist. Thank you, Director Lahm, for appearing today. The voters passed voter ID. And so the most likely scenario coming out of this is to be a registered voter in the state. And if you do not, I would assume the driver's license would qualify. But for those that do not have a driver's license, they'll have to get an ID. I would guess your agency will be the one responsible for that.
Well, I'm gonna have to defer that to the people that are working on that. There's been different drafts of that legislation. I know initially there was some legislation for that, and I don't know where that's gonna land. I think it's a possibility. I just don't know where that's gonna land.
Do you know what percent of the IDs, I mean, you do driver's licenses, but you also do you just call them ID cards?
Right, state identification cards,
Yeah.
correct.
How many of those do you do on an annual basis today?
I don't know that number off the top of my head, but we were asked on a few different bills. There were language in bills that said people over the age of 18 would be required to have a free ID. And we submitted a fiscal note. We looked at the 2020 census and to determine how many people were over the age of 18 in Nebraska. And we looked at how many people we have issued a credential over the age of 18 and took the difference from that to figure out those fiscal notes. So we have some of those numbers on those fiscal notes, and I can get that number back to your office if you want me to. So we submitted that. In fact, I think one of Senator McHale's bills has that information. Senator McHale Kavanaugh's bills.
If the legislation comes out to say the state will provide ID cards to those that ask for them, do you feel your agency is up to the task today?
Well, it would just be, if it was issued and it had the same requirements as our current credential, it would just be issuing credentials to additional people. So yes, I think we.
All right, thank you.
Senator Kavanaugh.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Lahm, for being here and for your willingness to continue to serve for the state. I wanted to follow up on some of the questions that Senator Frederickson had. Are there any opportunities or discussions about building another testing site in the Omaha area, specifically in East Omaha? Because 170th, I live at 72nd and Dodge, so I'm kind of centrally located, and that's a trek for me, and I have a car. So for those that have a difficulty with transportation to get all the way out there, it really is a problem in Omaha. So is there an opportunity for us to partner with the city, with the county, to get another testing facility?
I think we can always look at what the options are. So somebody who currently has their license can always go online.
Sure.
For online services. If they haven't had their license, they're in the process of doing the test to receive it, they're going to have a car to actually do the test anyway, because we don't provide the car.
Right.
But we can always look at options to partner with. Previously we partnered with the county.
Right.
We could look at those options and see what they look like.
Yeah, there used to be a testing facility blocks from my house. It was glorious on 84th. But yes, I appreciate that people can go online to renew. But again, this similar population doesn't have easy access to online services, because we have, just like the rest of the state, we have some broadband internet deserts, especially in East Omaha. So I appreciate that this maybe could be an ongoing conversation about how we can work on that. Another question I have is, last year we had a bill on driver's license fees, and it came to my attention that we, not you, but we charge more for the fee than is necessary for cover the costs. And I think it was $10 were going to the state general fund, and then we appropriated 2 or 3 of those dollars back to the GMV for necessary services. I'm not a big proponent of us charging fees unnecessarily. So if we were to reduce those fees by $7, or could that $7 go towards, are there any programs that we could be looking at, such as additional testing sites, not just in Douglas County, but around the state? Is that something that we could be using those resources for?
So your question is very timely, because tomorrow we have a bill in front of this committee that
Fantastic.
reallocates those fees.
Oh,
just to handle
wonderful.
operating expenses. So
To what expenses?
so I don't want to get in too much ahead of the bill, Senator Moser's bill, so I don't want to jump
Okay.
ahead of it too far, but just kind of to outlay what our last 6-7 year trend has been, actually longer than that, but specific numbers in the last 6 or 7 years that very specifically addresses that question. You just asked.
Awesome. Thank you. And I will find my own bill's fiscal note to share with the committee on the state IDs. So thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions for the director? Well, I'll just add how much I've appreciated working with you and your department. I did want to ask one question, and it's if you would just give a brief synopsis of what the driver's licensing system and modernizing that. Can you tell the committee what that looks like and where you're at in that process?
Okay, yeah, so the bill, it was LB 106, I think, that was passed in 2021. So that set aside the fee. So what that is that's a completely remake of our current driver's licensing system, which is currently on a mainframe legacy system. And so that process starts out with, right now, we actually have the RFP developed to hire a consultant that will help us identify and write the request for proposal. It's a very extensive request for proposal, like hundreds of pages, because we have to identify every business process we do. And in driver's licensing, it touches a lot, and everywhere that system touches. So that's the process we're in now. After we get the consultant on board, we'll do the request for proposal. We'll be meeting with all the stakeholders of people who use the system, have access to the system. And after that's out, then it goes out for bid. It will be probably a 3.5 to 4 year implementation project from the time we start the project until it's completely implemented. So it'll be a few years down the road, but that's the trajectory that we're on. But we're still paced to be done hopefully a couple years sooner than the statutory mandate.
Thank you. That's just helpful for all of us to kind of know where they're at. And I'll just throw in how excited I am to have a Lancaster County new licensing building. I know that's in process as well. But anyway, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions for Director Lahm? I don't see any. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That will close our confirmation hearing, and oh, no, it won't. I'm sorry. Are there any proponents for this appointment? I don't see anyone in opposition to this appointment. Seeing none, anyone in the neutral capacity? Now I will close the hearing for the appointment of Director Rhonda Lahm to the Department of Motor Vehicles. And we will move on to LB 37, which is Senator Dungan. Good morning.
Good morning. You have such a full schedule today.
Yes.
Good morning, Chair Geist and members of the Transportation and Telecommunications Committee. I am Senator George Dungan, Georgedungan. I represent the people of Northeast Lincoln in Legislative District 26. Today I'm introducing LB 37. LB 37 is a bill to allow county treasurers to accept a certificate of title inspection from any certified law enforcement agency from another state. Current Nebraska laws only allow county treasurers to accept a certificate of inspection from a state police agency only. Many states, like Iowa, allow a certified peace officer to perform title inspections. That could be a state police agency, a county sheriff, or municipal law enforcement agencies. Many state police agencies are located in more urban areas, making getting a title inspection burdensome in rural areas. States that have expanded title inspections to a certified peace officer or the equivalent have not seen an increase in crimes associated with vehicle sales or title inspections. LB 37 will expand the narrow scope of out-of-state title inspections while maintaining their integrity by requiring that the agency and officers are certified by their respective states. This concludes my introduction to LB 37. Thank you for your time and attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Are there any questions? Yes.
Thank
Senator
you.
Brandt.
Yeah, thank you, Chairwoman Geist. Thank you, Senator Dungan, for bringing this bill. I thought the county sheriffs can do this now. I'm almost positive in my counties, when we've had out-of-state titles, we go down to the sheriff, give them their 10 or 20 bucks. They verify it. And you're saying that's not the case, that it's has to be a state officer?
So what we're talking about specifically, thank you for that question. I want to clarify. We're talking about title inspections done by entities in other states. And so if a title inspection is done out of state, currently the law requires that that title inspection has to be done by a state agency in that other state. What we're trying to do is just expand the definition of that. So instead of state law enforcement agency, it says certified peace officer. For example, if you're trying to accept a title inspection that was done in Wyoming, and I'm just using that as an example, I don't know what Wyoming's laws are, but Wyoming happens to use local municipal officers like the local police that do title inspections out there. This would allow that title inspection to be accepted here in Nebraska, because currently it has to be a state law enforcement agency. So a state that does title inspections by state patrol would be accepted, but if they utilize county sheriffs or other levels of municipal law enforcement, it wouldn't necessarily qualify for out-of-state title inspections under the current law. So we're just trying to say if you are a certified peace officer that title in another state, that title inspection would be accepted here in Nebraska as well.
So today, to clarify, today, if I have a Kansas title and the Kansas State Patrol certified that, I wouldn't have to go to my sheriff?
Yeah, there's certain qualifications. There are certain times that you still have to do an in-state title inspection, for example, in the instances of salvage titles and things like that. But yes, there is a provision in the law that allows for the acceptance of out-of-state title inspections if they're done by a state law enforcement agency. We're just trying to expand that to all certified law enforcement officers.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Senator Fosterman.
Thank you, Chairman Dice. Thank you, Senator Dungan, for bringing the bill. Do you know how many people, because you have to have an in-state, I guess, liaison person to handle these, right?
Correct.
Do you know how many companies, businesses do that in Nebraska?
I don't know off the top of my head. I can try to get that information for you moving forward, but I don't know off the top of my head how many exist in Nebraska.
And do you think there's a few or a lot of these type of things come through the state, these type of inspections?
I think there's a few. I don't think this would, my understanding is this would not open up some gigantic floodgate where it would completely alter the way that our titling is done. I think it addresses a small problem that would affect in certain individuals and certain companies, but I don't believe that it's a massive amount of the titling that we're looking at here in Nebraska.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I have one.
Yes.
When this occurs, is the vehicle actually in the state? Like, would it be in Nebraska and seen by our state patrol to issue that or to accept that license, or is this sight unseen?
So this is for inspections that are being done out of state by other law enforcement agencies. So a certified law enforcement official who then has to have that certificate of title inspection certified by their boss or their superintendent, that's also required in here. It has to be checked off by a supervisor, would be done out of state.
Okay.
And so ultimately, that's this whole provision is allowing for those out of state title inspections.
Okay, thank you.
But I do think it's important to note the law does currently require that superintendent or supervisor certification or sign off.
Mhm.
So the certified law enforcement official does the title inspection, and then that has to be signed off by a superintendent. And so there is at least that check and balance there. And so I don't think this is going to open up floodgates either to any sort of malfeasance or concerns in that respect, given that there is that check and balance already in place.
Gotcha. All right, any other questions? I don't see any. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Are there any proponents to LB 37? Any proponents? Are there any opponents to LB 37? No opponents. Anyone to speak in the neutral capacity? LB 37. Seeing none, Senator Dungan, you are welcome to close.
There's a lot of questions to be answered.
Wait, then that will conclude the hearing for LB 37. And our hearings for this morning.